Did you know that 94% of organizations have experienced a serious security issue in the last 12 months in their container environment? That's right, container vulnerabilities are a major concern in cybersecurity. But what exactly are these containers we're talking about? Essentially, they are lightweight, standalone, and executable software packages that include everything needed to run an application, including the code, a runtime, libraries, environment variables, and config files. Containers are crucial in modern computing systems as they offer a consistent and reproducible environment, which makes deploying applications much more streamlined. However, the same features that make containers so beneficial also make them a prime target for attackers. This is why understanding and managing container vulnerabilities is of utmost importance. So, it's clear that container vulnerabilities aren't just a minor issue, they're a significant cybersecurity threat that needs to be addressed. Now you might be wondering how to identify these vulnerabilities. Well, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Identifying container vulnerabilities is like checking under the hood of your car. You're looking for anything that could potentially cause trouble down the road. It's about understanding the landscape of your container environment and taking proactive measures to ensure its security. The good news is, you don't have to go it alone. There are numerous tools available that can help you navigate this landscape. Container scanning tools, for instance, are designed to scan your container images for vulnerabilities. These tools can help you detect potential risks before they become actual problems. They can scan the entire container or specific components, depending on your needs. Vulnerability assessment tools, on the other hand, are a bit more comprehensive. They're designed to assess your entire container environment, not just the images. They look for potential weak spots in your configuration, outdated software, or other areas that could potentially be exploited. However, using these tools isn't a one-and-done deal. It's important to conduct regular scans and assessments to stay ahead of potential threats. Just like you wouldn't check under your car's hood once and then forget about it, you can't scan your container environment once and then ignore it. Regular scanning and updates are crucial to detecting vulnerabilities early. One thing to keep in mind is that these tools are not a magic bullet. They're not going to solve all your problems, but they can give you a clearer picture of your container environment and help you identify potential issues before they become real problems. In addition to using these tools, it's also important to stay informed about the latest vulnerabilities and threats. This includes keeping an eye on vulnerability databases, subscribing to cybersecurity news feeds, and participating in relevant forums and communities. In the end, identifying container vulnerabilities is all about being proactive. It's about taking the necessary steps to ensure the security of your container environment before problems arise. Remember, identifying vulnerabilities is the first step in addressing them. With the right tools and strategies, you can effectively manage your container environment. Once you've identified potential vulnerabilities, the next step is to understand how they can be exploited. This knowledge is crucial for both attackers and defenders. Let's dive into the process of exploiting container vulnerabilities. But remember, this is a double-edged sword. While it can be used maliciously by attackers, understanding this process is also key for defenders to develop effective security strategies. So how do we exploit container vulnerabilities? It's a step-by-step process, much like following a recipe. First, we need to find the vulnerability. Maybe it's a misconfiguration, or perhaps it's a flaw in the code. Either way, locating the weak spot is the first step. Once we've found the vulnerability, we need to understand it. What can it do? What can't it do? This phase is about learning the limits of the vulnerability and figuring out how we can use it to our advantage. Next comes the actual exploitation. This is where we use what we've learned to gain unauthorized access or disrupt services. Techniques vary widely here. Some might use a shell script to gain root access, while others might leverage a network vulnerability to disrupt a service. The method used depends entirely on the vulnerability at hand. But exploiting a vulnerability isn't the end of the story. Once inside, an attacker will often try to maintain access, often through methods such as creating backdoors or escalating privileges. And remember, exploiting container vulnerabilities isn't just about causing havoc. It's about understanding the system, finding its weaknesses, and figuring out how to strengthen it. It's about turning weaknesses into strengths, vulnerabilities into fortifications. This is why understanding these exploitation techniques is so crucial. Without this knowledge, we're left in the dark, unable to protect ourselves or our systems. But with it, we can shine a light on these hidden threats and take steps to mitigate them. Understanding how vulnerabilities can be exploited gives you the power to prevent these attacks before they happen. So we've talked about what container vulnerabilities are, how to identify them, and how they can be exploited. But what does all this mean for you? Let's take a quick walk down memory lane. Container vulnerabilities are weaknesses or flaws in a containerized application, which can expose your system to potential threats. These vulnerabilities can be as simple as misconfigurations or as complex as kernel exploits. Understanding these weaknesses is crucial for anyone involved in cybersecurity, as it is akin to knowing your enemy. We've also discussed how to identify these vulnerabilities. Remember the tools we mentioned? Open source tools like Claire and Docker Bench for security can be your allies in this quest. They can scan your container images and configurations, identifying potential weak spots. Keeping a vigilant eye on your containers is the first step in securing them. Then we delved into how these vulnerabilities can be exploited. An attacker can use these weak points to gain unauthorized access, disrupt operations, or even steal sensitive data. The potential damage can be significant, which is why it's essential to understand the risks and take steps to mitigate them. But all is not doom and gloom. Having a clear understanding of container vulnerabilities empowers you to take proactive steps. You can patch vulnerabilities, improve configurations, and implement security best practices to protect your containers. This knowledge isn't just theoretical. It's a practical tool that can be applied in real-world scenarios. Whether you're a network administrator, a cybersecurity enthusiast, or someone just starting their journey in this field, understanding container vulnerabilities is a valuable skill set. Container vulnerabilities might seem daunting, but with the right knowledge and tools, you can turn this challenge into an opportunity for enhancing your cybersecurity posture. It's about turning the tables on the attackers, transforming from a potential victim into a resilient defender. So, let's continue to explore, learn, and fortify our defenses in this ever-evolving world of cybersecurity.